Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our March 2018 monthly webinar. Thank you all for joining us today for Social Entrepreneurship, Channeling Your Passion into Making a Difference with Catch the Next peer mentor, Dr. Iris Hunter. Iris Hunter is president and founder of Air Venture Assets, Inc., DBA First Light Home Care of Springfield, Virginia, a socially responsible company that provides home care services to seniors and others with needs for home health assistance. She is also the owner of SOE Innovative Enterprises, LLC, a consultant business that provides customized services to nonprofits, corporations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, government agencies, and individuals on community programs development and innovative targeted outreach strategies. A passion of hers has always been to teach, which has led to a recent endeavor as an adjunct professor at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. Hunter's lifelong commitment is deeply rooted in her upbringing, having grown up in Charleston, South Carolina during the 1960s civil rights movement era. She believes that her destiny was determined by her life experiences and dictated her educational choices and career path, leading her to focus on areas that involve helping and uplifting others. These areas include adult and community education, educational empowerment initiatives, community program development, diversity and inclusion strategy development, and developing outreach strategies to reach and engage multicultural and marginal communities. All in all, she has nearly 25 years of experience in this arena. Prior to launching as an entrepreneur, Hunter worked for the American Diabetes Association and Save the Children as the National Director for AmeriCorps and other related Corporation for National and Community Service Programs. She graduated from the Union Institute and University with an interdisciplinary PhD in 2012 that allowed her to concentrate her studies in the areas of African American studies, women's studies, and adult and community education strategies. Her additional educational credentials include a master's degree in education in adult and community educational strategies, a graduate certificate in women's studies, and a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies. In African American Studies, and a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies in African American Studies and Cultural Studies, all from the University of South Carolina. In addition, she has completed various workshops and certification programs in leadership training, human resources enhancement, diversity and inclusion, youth program development, and cultural programs. Dr. Hunter, we want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. And I will now turn it over to you.
Okay. Is everything ready, Lydia?
Absolutely. Looks great.
Okay. Again, thanks to Lydia, who has been so very patient with me in regards to the technical components of this. I really do appreciate your help. I want to say thank you to Dr. Maria Martha Chavez, who has provided me with this opportunity, longtime friend and associate. And I would like to say thanks to all of you who work with Catch the Next, which is such an instrumental and awesome program. I am so happy to be here and to have this opportunity to talk a little with you and share a little about where I am and in regards to what I currently do and what I feel I've been doing all my life. So the topic, which is social entrepreneurship, channeling your passion into making a difference, pretty much says a lot, and it provides you with just an idea of what we're going to talk about. Living your purpose is pretty much the subtitle there. Okay, so we're starting off with the topic, what do you believe? And it says that man is made by his belief. As he believes, so he is. So what in the worldview? That is the question I ask. So we are probably all familiar with what a worldview is, but sometimes it's really good to just talk about it a little upfront. A worldview is the set of beliefs about fundamental aspects of reality that ground and influence all of one's perceiving, thinking, knowing, and doing. One's worldview is also referred to as one's philosophy, philosophy of life, mindset, outlook on life, formula for life, ideology, faith, or even religion. Okay, so I have a few quotes that are listed there because sometimes when people talk about passion and purpose, they get a little confused as to which is which in regards to passion, purpose, as well as worldview, as well as philosophy. So essentially, they're very similar and they all align with each other. So I have two separate quotes here. One that says, "You were put on this earth to achieve your greatest self, to live out your purpose, and to do it courageously." And the second that says, "If you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion, for your passion will lead you right into your purpose." So to tell you a little bit about me, because I believe so strongly that we are who we are as a result of what we've experienced. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. And I say that because I do feel that the concept of the Southern relevancy does matter. Growing up in the South, Charleston is historically known as a city that was heavy in the slave trade and the slave culture from a historical perspective, and is known for its wealthy, antebellum lifestyle, the homes, the society, those type of things from the past. It is also the birthplace of the Civil War, which some people may not know, but that is where the Civil War started. So it kind of tells you a little about the mindset. And it is, or was definitely in the past, it was pro-segregation. So where I enter, I was born in the early 1960s, and the 1960s was significant for various reasons. I mentioned the civil rights movement because of where I was in the South and what was happening in the 60s in the South. So civil rights activism, that was going on in the 60s, and that included marches, civil disobedience acts and lawsuits, those type of things. The Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964, Voters' Rights Act in 1965. And of course, you all may know or remember or read about it, but all of the assassinations of these prominent leaders happened during the 60s. President JFK, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Bobby Kennedy. So what do I believe? So faith, family, community, political engagement, human rights and social activism. And I mentioned they're a charge to keep. I believe strongly that making positive contributions in the world is important to me. So coming of age is what I consider the core things that help me to become who I currently am or who I've always wanted to be, because I do feel that when you're moving through life, you make choices. And these were the things that were a priority to me. Education was important. It was important to my family and to me as well. Community organization and involvement. We've always been a family that have been involved in many activities, even if it's the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, all of those things were things that counted as community organization involvement. Civic and political involvement. I've always been interested in that area. Finding my voice, that was really important to me. Learning how to speak up about social injustices and societal ills. The civil rights activism and human rights activism causes were always important to me. I love to read and write and sing. Those are some of the things that I really do like to do. And I love the arts, music, movies, and theatrical arts. So I call this slide Epiphany of Life because I do believe that at some point in every person's life, you come to a point where you have to make some decisions. So as I was busy in my life with all of the things that I was experiencing, which included divorce, becoming a single parent to my two children, I began to allow myself to dream again and to rethink my purpose. because sometimes you can become so involved in your life experiences, you may forget what it is you really want to accomplish. So that was important to me. I reached this epiphany and I was in my mid 30s and I really wanted to figure out how do I get to do some of the things that I'd like to do, or how do I get back on that track? So I began to mentally map out my future. I, it wasn't a one-day event. It takes place over time, but you gradually understand and see yourself moving and changing and moving into a different direction. Understanding the concept of delayed gratification. And when I say that, pretty much what I mean is that you have to, at some point, accept the fact that in order to get from point A to point B, you are not going to be able to have everything. You cannot expect to go to school, to work, to have a fancy car, and to have fun and parties and all of the things at one time. Sometimes you may have to put some things on hold in order to accomplish what you believe is important. Community service was what actually helped me to get from point A to point B. I was sitting and watching television one day. I lived in Dallas, Texas. Actually, DeSoto, Texas is where I used to live. And I was sitting and Bill Clinton came on television. He was talking about this new program called AmeriCorps, very similar to the VISTA program, but it was just about to start. And I said to myself, I would love to become involved in that particular program because it had a strong focus of community service, and that is the direction that I wanted to go in. So through the Greater Dallas Community of Churches, I was afforded the opportunity to become an AmeriCorps member. And I served for 2 years as an AmeriCorps member. Children's Defense Fund's Freedom Schools was a big part of that experience. Greater Dallas Community of Churches, they received a grant to actually set up several freedom schools in the city of Dallas. And I became one of the directors for one of the freedom schools. So that experience in itself opened the doors for me. And I must say that I think about it often, and I do know, and I felt like it back then as well, that this is where I belong. I do belong in community service. One of the other programs I worked with while I worked with AmeriCorps was the summer food program in Dallas, going around to different churches, encouraging and getting pastors and church leaders to sign on to become summer food sites. That was a big part of my experience with AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps offered exceptional leadership training opportunities, and I do credit them for that because they really do focus on leadership, and it helped me a lot. And of course, there was the scholarship that you would obtain at the end of each year of service. I really wanted to go back to school, and this is something that helped me and put me on that path as well. So embracing opportunities, and I say this not just for me, but I'm sure you feel very similar that there are some core things that you must consider as you move toward your goals. Education is critical and important. Finding mentors, you need to find people who will encourage you and who may have had some experiences as well. And they can tell you, for certain that you can do it. You can move beyond whatever the challenges are. Don't be afraid to learn new things. Open your mind and just be open and to others' experiences. And even if you don't understand it, it's good to learn. Seeking opportunities to explore and expand your knowledge about areas of interest. Volunteer opportunities, look for them. Internships, look for those type of opportunities. These things are going to help build you and prepare you for the next step. And then get involved. Get involved in your community and in political events. Of course, these are things that you're probably very familiar with, but I think it's really important to mention. So learning and growing. So when I returned to college as an adult learner, that was an interesting experience. When I was in school, prior to going back at this particular time, I left school at the beginning of my senior year in college, and I decided that I wanted to get married. And of course, I thought, I would still finish up my last year in college and then, get married and move. I can do all of it. And I found out that life happens. It doesn't always happen the way that we plan. So it took me probably about a decade to get back to college. And this is what AmeriCorps did for me. I was able to utilize the scholarship money that I received as an AmeriCorps member, and I returned to school. So I moved back east, or southeast, as I should say, to South Carolina, and I attended the University of South Carolina, which is where I went prior. So embracing new learning, this is always critical. Education has always been important to me. I love education, traditional and non-traditional. And I mentioned the two because there are things that are very different about the two. Non-traditional learning to me means that you are meeting people at the point of their needs. So sometimes that traditional setting does not work. So I wanted to become involved in strategies that would teach people or help to educate people wherever, not necessarily in the classroom. Not opposed to the classroom, love the classroom as well, but there are many ways that people learn. Women's studies was something that was very intriguing to me. I wanted to know more about it, and I had that opportunity to take a graduate certificate program, so I actually did a whole year in that particular program. And cultural studies has always been something that I've been passionate about, so I was able to expand my knowledge in that area. So I mentioned here purpose driving passion, because if it's something that you really feel passionate about, as I mentioned earlier, then you are going to try your best to become involved in opportunities that would allow you to experience that. Some of the things that I did: collaborative for community trust, and this is when I was in graduate school. All of these things are listed here. The Collaborative for Community Trust was a program in Columbia, South Carolina, that allowed me to work on the restoration of one of the civil rights leaders' home. And that was a tremendous experience. I really enjoyed it. The TRIO program, which is funded through the U.S. Department of Education, Student Support Services. I was the resident coordinator and counselor for that particular program. And many of you may be familiar with it. It is a program that supports first-generation college students. So I really enjoyed it, loved it. The TRIO program, Upward Bound. So I worked at one school at Allen University with the Student Support Services program. And then I worked at another school, the University of South Carolina, with the Upward Bound program. And I also did diversity training for the freshman experience. So I moved myself into the direction of these things because these are the things that matter to me. So preparing for my journey. We talked a little about education a few minutes ago, and I'm just kind of circling back to that. Graduate school was something that I wanted to do. So when I went back to school, I finished up that year that I left behind. I did it within a year, so I did not waste a lot of time. And I went directly into graduate school there at the University of South Carolina. And I received my master's in education, community and adult ed, which allowed me to work and learn about the non-traditional as well as the traditional educational components. The graduate certificate that I mentioned earlier in women's study. And I mentioned the thesis that I did for the women's study program because it was an experience for me that I really enjoyed. I learned a lot. Colorism amongst African-American college-age women, ages 18 to 24. So fulfilling dreams. So I had an opportunity to work with Save the Children. And that was regional in South Carolina at that point with the VISTA program. And then I had an opportunity to consider a position at the national office, which is in Connecticut, which is where I met your fearless leader, Maria Mata. So I became the national director for the AmeriCorps program. That experience changed my life. I just felt as if I almost came full circle, considering that I used to be an AmeriCorps member, and here I am now as the national director for the AmeriCorps program. We had programs all over the country. We had programs in Indian country, programs in the Mississippi Delta, and programs in Appalachian area of the country. The American Diabetes Association, that was my next step after leaving Save the Children when the grant dried up as a result of what was happening then after 9/11, and the fundings were not there to support a lot of AmeriCorps programs. So I decided to take an offer at the American Diabetes Association, their national office, which was based in the DC area, which is the area that I currently live in. I went there as the managing director of community initiatives. It was a brand new program, so I had the opportunity to create what community initiatives looked like for the organization on a national basis. That experience, it was a lot of work, but it was a wonderful experience. I later became the vice president of high-risk programs and health disparities. We sort of renamed the department, but I also took on the responsibility of becoming the special liaison to the CEO on diversity, and we shaped our diversity and inclusion program at the American Diabetes Association. While I was doing that, all of that work, I was still working on my PhD from the Union Institute and University. It took me a very long time. I had many stops and starts. It was just a lot of work, as many of you may know, working on a PhD program. But after about a decade, and yes, it did take me that long, I completed my program. And I received my PhD program. My focus areas, it was interdisciplinary, and the focus areas were women's studies, African American studies, and community education. And I was able to, for my dissertation, it was qualitative, I was able to interview 9 women. Actually, I interviewed more, but 9 made the final cut. And these were retired school teachers who had participated in the civil rights movement as educators. So what I was attempting to do, what I feel I did, was I was able to show the linkage between formal teachers and community education, because these people, these women, they actually worked during the day in public schools, and at night, they would go and participate in programs that were set up through the civil rights movement called citizenship schools. And they provided the trainings for many of the people who were learning how to become citizens and learning how to vote. So it was the basic reading, writing, and these were what I consider the quiet leaders. A lot of times, teachers are not given the attention that others receive for their accomplishments. But these teachers worked tirelessly during the civil rights movement. I mentioned September Clark because she was one of the ones who were more well-known. She worked very closely with Dr. King throughout the civil rights movement. And she is from my hometown as well, Charleston. And I interviewed, well, she's deceased, but I interviewed these other women who knew her and who pretty much worked in the same tradition that she did. So this leads me to the concept of social entrepreneurship. The definition that's listed there says social entrepreneurs combine commerce and social issues in a way that improves the lives of people connected to the cause. They don't measure their success in terms of profit alone. Success to social entrepreneurs mean that they have improved the world, however they define that. So it is a very broad interpretation. So why did I decide I want to be an entrepreneur? I think at some point in many of our lives, we feel as if, it's time to step out and become an owner of something. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to become an owner, and I wanted to have a little control of my own destiny. And I said to myself, is the sky the limit? So I will tell you what I have learned through the experience is that if anyone is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, it is very important to do your homework. Research, plan, and have a little bit of money. That's very, very important. So, some more tips, the good, the bad, and the ugly of entrepreneurship. I would say some pros would be, yes, you do control your own destiny. Autonomy, you have that. The sky is the limit, and you have the opportunity to be creative. No one's going to tell you don't do that. It's all you. Now, here are some of the cons. You must balance heart and business, or be eaten alive by the sharks. And that is so true. I find that a lot of people who have worked in nonprofit, like I had for most of my career, you tend to have a lot of heart, and sometimes it makes it hard to kind of find that happy medium. Well, you must have that happy medium in place at all times if you're going to become a business owner, because you've got to keep the lights on. You must be prepared for the what ifs, because there are many what ifs. You must have money. That's the only way that you could be an entrepreneur and be successful to some capacity. And it's good to know the facts. Only 20% of small business survive over a year. I say that because that information made me decide to look at opportunities that have had, perhaps the higher level of success. So trying to blend it all, because it doesn't matter to me if a business makes a lot of money, if it's not something that I feel passionate enough to do or want to do. And keeping in mind that, I'm very much a person that's focused on life works and fulfilling my purpose, I needed to find something that I felt that I can make a contribution to and feel good about it. And then also at the same time, something that, would be sustainable. So my company is First Light Home Care of Springfield, Virginia. And I do have the website there. Anyone would like to look at it, please feel free to look at it. If you have questions about anything that I have on the website, please feel free to contact me. I'm very open to that. And I decided on this particular business, because of the fact that statistics supported the success of the business. Out of all of the brand new business that started, the home care field was one of the areas that seemed to have the highest sustainability level. So that was important to me. I knew enough about seniors. As I get older, I'm thinking about seniors because we're getting older. And I do know that seniors is the fastest growing population segment in the US. Statistics show that the 65-year-old and older population grew from roughly 35 million in 2000 to over 50 million by 2016, and projected growth by 2050 is over 85 million. So people are living longer. Not only are they living longer, they're wanting to live in place. They want to live at their homes. So this is why the home care business has become pretty much a very popular business. We provide non-medical in-home care to seniors. Now, we don't only serve seniors, but that is the larger part of the population that we serve. So we serve others who have special needs as well, providing personal care and companion care. In addition to serving seniors, I feel as if the fact that I'm able to employ about 50 staff in this area to work in the home of clients, I feel that that is something too that is allowing me to help people. I'm able to give them jobs and help them to sustain their lifestyles. So far, we've been in business for 4 years, over 4 years actually. So it does tell me that I have beat the odds of that 20%. And every day brings new surprises. It's not an easy business, but it is a business that you can manage. And I really do enjoy the fact that I'm able to make impacts, social impacts through this business. So is it the end for me? No. I'm still living, I'm still breathing. I still feel as if there are many things that I would still love to do. Some of the other things that I'm currently doing is I volunteer for organizations that I feel possess a strong sense of human rights and social responsibility whenever I can. I am very vocal about what I believe to be socially and politically right or wrong. That will stay with me, I think, until the very end. I vote because I understand the importance of voting. I teach a course at a university that is actually considered one of the most, if not the most diverse universities in the country. This opportunity does support my desire to encourage others to work with others to strive for success and to accomplish their goals. But it also allows me to listen and learn about others' perspectives and viewpoints, which I am passionate about. I have a consultant business. I haven't been able to do a lot of work on that because I'm so tied up with the business and teaching at this time, but I still have a consultant business that supports community programs and community outreach initiatives development. I work within my church. I stay connected to my loved ones. I contribute time and resources to causes I find meaningful. And I am always open to embracing new opportunities. So I would say to you, if you are thinking about entrepreneurship from a social perspective, or in general, just with defining what your purpose is in life, how do you pull it all together? Here are just a few things that I would ask you to consider. And sometimes it helps to even write it down, because once you write it down, you can look at it and then make a little more sense of it. So I say to you, evaluate your life. What do you want your legacy to be? Just jot that down. What makes you feel fulfilled? What are your gifts and talents? Channel your gifts into helping others. How can you do that? What pulls at your heartstring? What are the things that keep you up at night? And not, besides CNN, I'm sure that keeps me up at night, but what are the things that keep you up at night, that make you wonder and think, wow, what can I do to make it better? Become willing to do the right thing, even if it goes against what those close to you embrace. Sometimes it's difficult to speak up and say, this is correct, this is wrong, but encourage yourself to do that. Step out of your comfort zone. Stop being comfortable with everything. Life is not about being comfortable. You need to just be prepared. Step out of your comfort zone. Embrace new learning from various perspectives. Keep an open mind. Be open to the possibilities and create a strategy. And last but not least, get to work. So that completes my presentation. So I'm very open to any questions that you might have for me, Lydia.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm so pleased. I mean, I think, you're an amazing role model, and I love that you have shown really candidly, your life story and how you have worked to achieve your passion and your own purpose. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So I want to open up now to questions from anyone who is on the webinar. While folks are thinking about their questions, and again, feel free to use the hand raise feature if you do have audio functionality, and I'll unmute you. If you don't have audio or if you don't have a microphone, you can definitely type up your question and send it in the questions pane, and I will read it to Dr. Hunter for you. In the meantime, while we're waiting on folks, I have quite a few questions.
Okay.
One that I wanted to start with is, and to go back to one of your earlier slides about embracing opportunities like education and kind of thinking about, you know, how you might go into new fields and things like that. I know for myself, I'm an English major. I have all my degrees in English, and as I have sort of unreflectively stumbled into other fields, including the nonprofit field, including which is still geared toward education. But one of the things I've found is that it's opened me up to think about, like, well, maybe I should go back to school and get a degree in something else, or maybe I should study, you know, this, or so. In thinking about my passion, which is for me educating adult learners, and in non-traditional settings, as you mentioned, or community-based sorts of settings, I'm wondering if you could give any advice about, you know, when thinking about embracing opportunities, how do you strike a balance between breadth and depth? And what I mean by that is I feel like there are so many opportunities to learn new things that sometimes it feels like I'm skipping from one thing to the next, and when maybe I really should just be focusing on one, or focusing on one or two. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're wanting to know sort of like how do you find that balance, that medium? You know, so I'm thinking just about my experiences, because I did not have that option to, you know, do one thing and then work on another thing. I found that in many cases, yes, I was doing several things at the same time. I would definitely say, you know, when you're in that moment, you may need to prioritize for that period of time. You know, even if you're doing several things, if you're really wanting to, let's say, focus on the adult education teaching component, but you're still working with these other areas, like you said, a nonprofit or something else at the same time, you just need to prioritize for that period of time and say, you know what, I'm going to focus on the education component. However, these other pieces, I may not be able to give it my full attention, but I will still hold on to it. And I say that I can use in comparison the fact that I mentioned that I also have a consultant business, but I haven't been able to work on it recently because I have so much that's happening with the business as well as with teaching, but I'm not giving it up. I'm going to hold on to it. And I know that life is going to allow me to circle back at some point so that I can focus and place, you know, more emphasis on that.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your consultant business?
Sure. So because I've had the opportunity to have so much experience with grant writing and program development as a result of my work with AmeriCorps at Save the Children, as well as the other programs like Vista that I worked with, and then to transition from there to the American Diabetes Association, where I pretty much did mainly program development. And like I mentioned earlier, I was really blessed with both of those opportunities because pretty much it was like the first for both of those initiatives. And I was able to kind of just take it and from the start and just create it and pretty much create the blueprint, should I say. So as a result of that, I've had a lot of experience with program development. So there are people all the time that are wanting to start nonprofits, or they need help with setting up the structure. So my consultant business would provide them with the support that they need to start their business or keep their business afloat, manage their grants, is all of those types of things. Also events, a lot of people, a lot of companies, I worked with one company that wanted to have a health disparity event. And I work with them to develop what that event looks like. And those are the type of things I do with my consultant work.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And I just wanted to read a comment here from Diane Lerma, who comes to us from Palo Alto College in San Antonio, Texas. She says, "Thank you, Dr. Hunter, for your inspiring message today. You're a brilliant woman with a beautiful spirit."
Oh, thank you, Diane.
Of course. And of course, we echo that sentiment.
That's very
I wanted to ask about, I really appreciated your advice about, for anybody who is interested in becoming a social entrepreneur. And I think a lot of this could apply to entrepreneurs too, which I know a lot of my students are interested in taking that route for their careers. So where you said research, strategic planning, and revenue. And I also really appreciated the checklist as well. With the revenue piece, how do you come to that? Like, how do you get started with that?
So I would say, it just depends on the avenue that you're taking. If you are starting a nonprofit, there are opportunities to, look for grants. If you are looking more so at a business, a for-profit business like what I did, you will need some startup dollars. And you can get startup dollars from various places. In my case, I utilized my retirement funds because I really wanted to try and start it without having a lot of debt load at the very beginning. So, using your retirement fund is a risk in itself too, because you're taking money out of, money that you were saving for later. But other options are, let's just say for my business is a part of a national franchise. So even though I am the owner of my business, I bought it through the concept of a franchise. So many franchises, they do offer financial funding to folks who are wanting to become a owner of a business in their franchise. So those are some options you need to look at. And then there's also loans through the Small Business Administration. However, the Small Business Administration, the loans are excellent. They're low interest loans. However, they do require that you're in business, I believe, for 2 years, with the exception of a few different businesses. Some of the businesses that they have funded well and they have seen good returns on, they may give you a loan prior to the 2 years, but generally it's a 2-year period. So there are many options, and I'd be happy to talk with anyone offline to help them do a little research and find out more about what it is that they're interested in.
Awesome, thank you. And if we don't have any more questions, I just have one final comment, which was that I really appreciate that you started with the question of what do you believe? I think that both for ourselves and for our students, that identifying our beliefs and identifying our passions and balancing those with priorities, like you mentioned before, it can be a really excellent exercise. And I'm glad we still have the purpose checklist up here, because I think this is an exercise that I would even use in a class, right? To think about for my students, what are their goals? Why are they on their path that's starting at, in this college class, for instance, and how to identify their passion and things like that. I think very often we talk about their career goals and their educational goals. So I like that this ties in beliefs and passion and heart with that. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Yes, I do feel as if, a job is a job, but if you're wanting to dedicate your life to something that you love, you must always consider, what are your heart's desire and what is your passion. So I feel as if this is important. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Hunter. We appreciate you. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And it looks like we have one more question or comment here. Juan Ochoa says thank you as well. So just on behalf of all of the attendees and all of us at Catch the Next, we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.